a little bit of a tough one today. I suppose most people who watch these videos are people like me and photographers, or people who like to think they're photographers, usually are somewhat politically aware, often politically active, and a lot of photographers historically, and a lot of my favorite photographers tend to be very socially and politically aware people, and it often shows in their photography. It shows in their body of work. For instance, one of my possibly my favorite photographer of all time, Sebastião Salgado, his focus on the environment and what he's currently dedicated his life to, which is reviving and revitalizing the environment, really. It does come across in his work. This is the second book of the second photo book of his that I own, Workers. This is a subject in terms of photography, politically, socially, that is very near and dear to me and very important to me, not just in photography. I also own Genesis by Sebastião Salgado, and I think pretty much any book that he's put out is just consistently amazing. I also have photo books by Fanho, like everyone does, and I've also got a photo book by Elliot Erwitt, Joseph Kudelka, who is also just one of these photographers whose life story and just his photographic work is incredible, and it's very varied, and it's very evocative, and it also speaks to me personally. And that kind of leads me into something you don't see in terms of photography specifically in the West very often. Now, this is a topic that is very, very much not just in the news, but in the forefront of people's minds politically and culturally, at least in the West now, for the past 200 and some odd days, especially on social media. If you haven't blocked that part of the world and world events right now, we're kind of watching the most horrific images and acts of violence. Since I was 7 or 8 years old, I've just been very much in that world and seeing what was going on, and kind of just seeing it as this really frustrating background noise that no one was really going to pay attention to. And I was always sure it was just going to be this tragedy in the background that eventually the Western credential class uses as some sort of weird personality or morality building exercise that in the end really just amounts to nothing and people learn nothing from. But to see it thrust so violently back into the social consciousness across the globe, you can't help but feel for people who are and have been undergoing erasure for over 100 years now. And this isn't the only bit of media I have on this. I've got a whole bunch of books that are about this specific issue, and also touch on it in a wider geopolitical context. Also, I come from a place that was colonized very brutally and has, endured a death count inflicted upon it through imperialism in the millions, really, and is subjugated through the debt austerity cycle, through the capture, brain drain, and the financialization of its government to this day. You see a lot of photography about Western and even Eastern history, but you don't see a lot of photography specifically about Palestine, and especially Palestine before 1948. I just kind of wanted to go over it and kind of bring it to the attention of photographers specifically, even if you're not politically inclined. It is just a beautiful document of history, a visual document, and it shouldn't really upset anyone to learn about or see a bit of reality pre-1948 about a people who really are fighting erasure. So let's get a better look at this book. Like I said before, I've only been through this book once, and like it's just stunning and beautiful and revelatory. But here's a better look at it, and it has a foreword by Muhammad al-Kurd. If you do not know who that is, read some of his work, and he's just, you know, he's just generally an incredible writer in his way of explaining things, specifically when it comes to things like settler colonialism and imperialism, and conflict in general is just unbelievable. This isn't necessarily a photography book, it's more of a history book, but it has absolutely brilliant photography all throughout. So yeah, there is a lot of information, written information that's important, and I'm not going to go over right now. But again, this is a study of history. I like fairly sober photography books, and this is about as sobering as things get. And so yeah, it gives you a lot of background and context, which is super important for something like this, especially if you're new to this. It just has, if you like photography, it just has beautiful photography all throughout. And if you're into travel or cultural or historical photography, it doesn't really get more interesting than this. So a water wheel from the 1920s. And in terms of, it doesn't really cover what kind of medium the photograph was taking on specifically. They're not going to tell you that it's a 4x5 large format camera, or if it was a view camera, or if it was 35 millimeter, or whether it was 120 film. 1920s, you've got men packing boxes, and you've got an orange farmer in Haifa. There is you've got Hebron in 1914. Melon Market between 1900 to 1920. So you're going to see a lot of, unfortunately though, from the photographer's perspective, there are not a lot of large photos, like physically. I feel like a lot of these should just cover the page, and I wish there were just really high quality scans. And these scans are incredible quality. You can see a lot of detail, but it's not something that that I would compare it to a book like Salgado's Genesis or some of Van Ho's stuff. And and that's not really a bad thing, because you need the information, you need the context, because again, this is as much of a book about history and about the plight of a region and a people as it is about specific photography or photographers. But man, that's just beautiful, beautiful. Many of us will spend our life traveling and trying to get a photograph like this and never manage it. Yeah. So these are, you know, I thought I was going to get a lot of like low quality, grainy, low fidelity photographs, but these seem like large format photos. Given it's, you know, a lot of this is early 1900s, yeah, probably the tones, the gradations of everything, and just the scans are just really, seem really high quality. They're really, really high resolution, given the fact that they're scanned, or rather printed, fairly small. I'm wondering if this is a if this is holding the positives, or if this is the film, this is the actual film. I don't think, if this is the actual film that they scanned and then turned into a positive, I'd like to know. I only gave a cursory look. I just wanted to get this done fast and quickly before I actually poured over it. But man, look at this. People dream of taking photographs like this. Just absolutely beautiful stuff. And one thing I will say going into this photograph, one of the things that really keeps certain people, I guess specifically in a Western audience, from enjoying a lot of photography that's Middle Eastern or Eastern or West Asian or even Eastern European, like when it comes to places like the Caucasus, Russia, is they kind of approach it from an Orientalist lens. And this book is one of those things that helps combat that like Orientalist take, which is something I have a personal disdain for. Wow. So it's just one beautiful, beautiful, rich, textured, just, I know I said beautiful twice already, but beautiful photo after another. But yeah, you've got well over 100 pages of just beautiful, beautiful history. And then there's also scans, or maybe even photographs, scans of photographs of, people's documents, passports, and just a lot of history. This is an anti-imperialist and anti-colonial book, which also speaks to me personally. And, I'm going to be poring over this book more than once. And if you're wondering, how to contribute in a positive way, how to, help people, you can help by kind of helping them tell their story, And it's important to have things like this, especially as a photographer, especially if you're into travel and cultural photography as well. Even street photography, stuff like this is important because, documenting even our daily lives, you can't escape the political nature of that act. Yeah, so if you are even remotely interested in this subject, I think this is a great way to kind of put your money towards a good cause.